Yes, I will share some music from my voice. It doesn't need to be translated. And of course, if you don't want to hear it, if you don't want to hear me, turn the mute off. And if you need to get around, get up and move around and get some water, go to the bathroom, whatever it is. As you mull around the presentations from today, so many sparks of inspiration. As it reminds me of joy. So join as this moment of worship is adoring our God, creator, first source and center, with God's adorable attributes that are the pattern within all of creation. And how each time we remember this, returning back to center moment by moment, I can't help but not be joyful. Maybe you share that sentiment with me in kinship with our celestial friends. And this honoring the great musicians of the world and one of the greatest, Beethoven. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before the opening to the sun above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive the dark of doubt away. Giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the light of day. All thy works of joy surround the earth, and heaven reflect thy rays. Stars and angels sing around the center of unbroken praise. Field and forest, vale and mountain, flowery meadow, flashing sea, chanting bird and flowing fountain calls us to rejoice in thee. Thou art giving and forgiving, ever blessing, ever blessed, ocean depth of happy living, wellspring of the joyful rest. Thou art Father, Christ our brother, all who live in love art thine. Teach us how to love each other, lift us to the joy divine. Mortals join the mighty chorus which the morning stars began. Father love is reigning o'er us, brother love binds man to man. Ever sing us march we onward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music leads us onward in the triumph song of love. And if you'd like, repeating in your own language, your favorite language, the Lord's Prayer that Jesus taught his family. Our Father, who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our bread for tomorrow. Refresh our souls with the water of life. And forgive us, everyone, our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. Save us in temptation. Deliver us from evil. And increasingly make us perfect like yourself. Welcome back from the break. Thank you to all of those who have come before us. My brother Toni in Switzerland, my brother Juan in Canada, and I am Aprilhelen here in the Ozarks in the United States. And we'll continue our communion experience as Juan and Toni share in some personal prayers. Juan?
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be sharing with all here. Can you hear me or not? Am I muted?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So, since I am the Spanish member, voy a hablar en español para que por favor puedan traducir a la audiencia hispana. Voy a contribuir también con una oración de apertura para nuestra presentación. Entonces, los invito a que adoptemos una postura en la que estemos cómodos, que podamos conectar con nuestro Padre Celestial que mora en nuestro interior. Y quien desee me puede acompañar en esta oración. Amado Padre Celestial, gracias te damos desde lo más profundo de nuestros corazones por la oportunidad de permitirnos estar aquí y ahora a la luz de tu presencia para crecer en espíritu y para contemplar la sabiduría espiritual y la riqueza de personalidades tan maravillosas que han podido estar presentes y contribuir también con su sabiduría. Quisiéramos, Padre amado, pedirte una bendición especial a cada uno de nosotros para que contemos siempre con la inspiración, la luz, la fortaleza y todo lo necesario para seguir creciendo como verdaderos hijos tuyos, como verdaderos instrumentos de tu amor, de tu paz y de tu voluntad. En nombre de nuestro amado Padre, que mora en el paraíso y en nuestro interior. Amén. Aprovecho para transferir la palabra a mi compañero Toni.
Very good. I got lost in your Spanish speaking, so that was really nice to hear. really privileged to be here with you all to share. I'm just recovering from a cold, so my voice may sound a bit funny, but still glad to be here. I just first want to read a short passage from the Urantia book from paper 101, and then take that into a short prayer. And I think that leads straight into the prompt one. Aprilhelen, am I right?
Actually, I was going to give a little explanation about what we're going to be doing.
Okay, that's good. So I'll just read the passage in a short prayer. Is that good? Yeah. Okay. So in paper 101, it talks in paper 101 from 6:8. It says the teachings of Jesus constituted the first Urantia religion, which so fully embraced a harmonious coordination of knowledge, wisdom, faith, truth, and love as completely and simultaneously to provide temporal tranquility, intellectual certainty, moral enlightenment, philosophic stability, ethical sensitivity, God consciousness, and the positive assurance of personal survival. And it then goes on to list the sevenfold ways in which we get salvation. But I just want us to really have a short, like 1 minute period of prayer and meditation, more meditation on how the teachings of Jesus can create some sort of harmony within us and really help us to not only solve our problems of being human now, but also our eternal journey of becoming more and more like our Father. So I just wanted us to reflect for a minute and just really thank Jesus for really just exemplifying this life for us to follow after, and for us having this knowledge that we can then use to help us in our own individual journeys. So thank you, Jesus, for showing us how you lived your life so that we can also believe with you and we can also live our own lives by following some of the examples which you've shown. Help us to each day be grateful and thankful of your presence, of your life, and help us, Father, to grow each and each day more like you. So I hand over to our Sister Aprilhelen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. I love that. Spending time in silence together. And thank you, Mr. Juan, for your words. So we three, Juan, Toni, and I, are the main contributors currently to the Youth and Young Adult Committee of the Urantia Book Fellowship. And we are so grateful that we were asked by UAI and Urantia Young Adult International, Miss Jeannie, Antonio, Oscar, and all of those who I am not naming right now, to collaborate with you at this first special Youth Urantia-thon. Thank you. And more collaboration to come ahead in our future, I'm sure. So over the next hour and a half or so, we will be guiding you into several breakout rooms. And as you can see in the chat, Miss Jeannie has asked us to place our preferred language next to your name. And you then will be guided into a language-specific breakout room. The English will remain here in the main room, and Portuguese and Spanish will then be facilitated by Juan in our Spanish-speaking room and Miss Jeannie in our Portuguese-speaking room. And Toni and I will guide the facilitation or the conversations within the English-speaking room. And we're doing this so that you have, now that we've had a full day of awesome presentations, to communicate with each other in smaller groups so we can have more of our personalities shine brightly with each other as we are here together in spiritual growth. We are asking that, I have two of them going on. I apologize about that. I'm going to be here. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to put this in the chat. And it's a little bit of a guideline of how to go about in your particular rooms, moving right along in a more conducive space to respect each other in these conversations. So we're asking that you use universal language. And what this means is respect for all, bearing the fruits of the Spirit with your speak, and respecting multiple genders and races. And although I think I can intuit that we all do this anyway, it's just good to lift these things up so that we can be explicit about respecting all participants here. And whether you're listening in on Facebook or hearing these conversations recorded on YouTube later, that's a note that we are respecting many diverse groups of people, whether you're Urantia Book students or not. So I already announced who the hosts and timekeepers are. Of course, raise your either physical or electronic hand when you want to get into the queue to speak, and so that we can share time equally, you know, around 3 minutes, and the facilitator will help you to move along if that's being extended. And if there's so many people who want to speak, only speak once so everyone can be heard. And maybe if you are eager to speak, maybe step back a little bit so those who are less eager, we want to hear from you as well. So make sure that, what is that saying? Step up, step back. If you're shy, maybe now's the time that you come into the light so we can share in your personality, because you are just as important as everyone else. And then no crosstalk. And I would probably say this also has to do with one of the Urantia motas, if you're familiar with Urantia mota, that to not give advice unless it is asked for. However, if you do want advice, then ask for it, and I'm sure someone will give it to you. And of course, remain muted unless you're speaking. So as we move forward into these, we're going to have about 3 conversations. And Toni, would you like to prompt us with the first one, or would you like me to? Are you prepared? All right, so we're going to be prompted, then we're going to get the question, then we're going to go into the breakouts, and then when we come back from the breakouts, we'll have a little reflection round before going into another breakout conversation. All right, mister, are you ready? Go for it.
Hi, everyone, again. So the idea of oneness is something that I want to really just share about briefly, which would then lead to a question. So oneness in terms of our journey of progress and becoming more and more like our Father, but also oneness in terms of how that plays into the exhibition of the fruits of the Spirit. So we've heard a lot about like the fruit of the Spirit, the leadership, you know, the laws and things like that. So very similar topics. So today I just want us to think in the sense of, are these fruits just, you know, random things that show up? No, they are actually evidence. The fruits is an evidence of something. It's the evidence of the indwelling and just Son. So the evidence of our Father living within and through us. So how does that tie in to the idea of where not only at this moment are we one with our Father, but we are also becoming more and more like Him, you know, more united with Him. So that's what I want to share now. And the question would be, how does oneness play into, or oneness, another way to say it, how does unity with our Father, the indwelling adjuster, now, before we attain adjuster fusion, how does that play into the display or the evidence of the fruits of the Spirit? You know, so what's the role of that? How does that tie in? Is there a link between that? So just for us to discuss it, and yeah.
Hey, will you type that question into the chat?
Okay, yeah, I will do that now.
Awesome. So Juan and Jeannie, make sure to copy that question down. And I'm assuming, Jeannie, you are going to be putting everybody into their breakout rooms. And we will have 15 minutes for this conversation. So right now it's about 3:15, 3:17. So around, let's give till the 40-minute mark. Okay, Miss Jeannie?
Yes, you want me to do the breakout rooms, or you will do?
I'd appreciate it if you did.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. Well, have fun talking, everyone. And there is your question from Toni, if you want to copy and paste that. Wonderfully articulated question. How does oneness influence displaying the fruits of the Spirit? Oneness, having the thought adjuster within us, having God within us. And as Mr. Juan prayed to us, also reminding us in the center of all things in paradise. Our guiding light back home, I look at it like that. I know that there's a lot of people to get into breakout rooms, so thank you for your patience here.
Sorry, one question. Juan, do you need to be in the Spanish breakout room?
Yes,
Por
please.
favor, sí.
Estás dos veces. ¿Cuál de los dos?
El que dice, el que tengo la cámara. El otro es mi teléfono. Déjame ver. Ahora solo hay uno, el único que hay.
Ok.
Muchas gracias, Jenny.
Let's go. Okay. Thank you for doing that, sister. So the English are remaining here in the main room. So we'll just go ahead and take it over for this question. How does oneness influence our display of the fruits of the Spirit in our lives? 2 or 3 minute sharing. And we got Nachita. You want to come off mute, brother, and tell us about your thoughts?
Yeah, hello everyone.
Hi.
Right now I'm at work, so I'm gonna try to spend as much time as I can. But I think that's the way that it touches us and it helps us display the fruits of the Spirit. I think is they're being honest and having the conscious notion that the Spirit always listens and it points us in the right direction. So if we are dishonest ourselves, we're consciously aware of that, and we inherently know that we do evil things. So I think just knowing that there's a spirit within us, it makes us willing to be fruitful and show the spirit to others. If I think others that mean that don't understand or don't have the notion that there is a spirit within them, they delude their minds in a way to not be true to themselves because there's no consequences. But once you know there is a spirit within you, it makes you more conscious of who you are and your destiny. And I think it propels you forward to communicate more with yourself, spirit with others, so you can grow personally and to be more perfect as the Father in heaven is perfect. I'm not trying to take too much time here, but that was the main point I was trying to make from this. Check for a second. Yeah, that was my main point. I just want to share that. I think just knowing that there is a spirit within us, it makes us more willing to share. And I think that's such a key point to like reflect on that cannot be overlooked. If we do not understand that and embrace that, then it's difficult for us to express ourselves because there seems to be no consequence with everything we do in that regard. So I think.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. That is actually makes quite a lot of sense, because if we're not, I think what you're trying to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but being aware of the indwelling adjuster is actually the first step in terms of, getting on the right journey. Because if we are not aware, then we would not even have a reason to live in terms like rightly, or also in the sense like being aware makes us also want to live right, because then we know God lives within us, and then we want to exhibit those fruits of the Spirit. Am I right?
Yeah, correct. That's what I was trying to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm just going to call on Jetta. Can you please share? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I would also like to add that the indwelling adjuster is our guide. Our adjuster is always there in the background, whether we know it or not, whether we feel it or not. And the adjuster is always guiding us, always. But we don't always adhere or can attune to the adjuster. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you may be doing something simple, and then you always heard, or many of us heard, that our parents will always say that small still voice or that soft voice, that inner voice that you hear. Like, don't go across the street, or don't go to the post office today, or just basic things that's just pretty frivolous to you. But that is your adjuster guiding you, you know, because if you ever notice, when you did go ahead and go to the post office after hearing your adjuster speak, it didn't turn out too well usually. So, you know, we're always being guided continuously, every day, all the time. It's whether or not we're in tune to the Holy Spirit of God. So we have to always try to be open in our minds and in our hearts daily to hear from God, because he's always there, or the Mother Spirit, whatever you attune to, is always there speaking to us. So that is the one. Once that energy is fused, that's how we ascend, you know. But if we're always ignoring, or we're not, you know, trying to connect, then that's how we become disconnected to the Spirit of God. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cheta. Next, I'm going to call on Ilunga. My apologies if I do not pronounce your name correctly. Thank you.
Ilunga is how you say it. You said it pretty good, Tony.
Thank you.
Before I became aware of having a thought adjuster, I consider myself, you know, like a good guy, a good person. And there's a saying in the Urantia book that the kingdom of good is not the same thing as the kingdom of God. And I was definitely in the kingdom of good. But once I became aware of God and having a thought adjuster, having a divine fragment in me, the kingdom of God is a whole lot better. A whole lot better. And once I started communicating with my thought adjuster regularly, I just, you know, fell in love with doing that. And it's definitely made me a better person toward other people, even though like I said before, I always thought I was a good person toward other people. It made me better toward other people. And once I started looking at everybody else as my spiritual brothers and sisters, it even got better, because I became a lot more tolerant of people, a lot less judgmental of people. And, you know, there's a section in the Urantia book where Jesus kind of tells the 12, his disciples, you know, I'm going to upstep your love game just a little bit. Instead of brotherly love, you know, try fatherly love. So I started that. I started trying fatherly love, like looking at everybody like, okay, they're my children. What did that do for me? It did a lot. It made me actually not be punitive toward people, like wanting to punish people for bad behavior, but it made me try to figure out a way to, you know, to help people, how to, you know, help make them better. And this is a phrase I've used before. I want to close with this. I try to be what I call one of God's love candles. And what does that mean? It means wherever I go, I try to shine the light of love and emit the fragrance of love. Ta-da, I'm done.
That's very good. Very, very good. I just want to pick on some of the quotes that I'm finding in the chats. And the first one is from, sorry, that's my daughter calling my name. So the first one is, the secret of the life of Jesus, his unparalleled religious life, was this consciousness of the presence of God. So actually, Jesus himself lived just in this way. Like, the essence of the way he lived was that he was aware that the Father was within him. That was it. Like, that was the one like guiding principle that they live this life by. And that is very, very good. So thank you very much, Ruthie, for sharing that. And also to live by the supreme golden rule to treat others as God treats them. Because, yeah, very true. Because not only does God dwell within us, but he also dwells within them. Very good. Is there any other person I'm missing whose hand is raised up? Just quickly checking.
I just want to say I love hearing children's voices in the background. Hey, Daddy.
Yeah.
I know it's getting late there for you, brother, in Switzerland.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. She should be in bed right now. Yeah. Would anyone
Well,
else like to share an idea or a thought in, that ties into this?
yeah, Jeffrey Waddles, you want to come off mute? I see your hand up.
The thought adjuster is our worship conductor. And that's the highest level of worship when it's not something that we're doing. And worship, when we do it together, brings us closer. It promotes unity. And when we worship with different groups on different occasions and learn to extend our sense of spiritual fellowship like that, it promotes the fruits of the Spirit. That's my thought.
That's very, very good. Very good. I have one thought I'll love to also share. And many years ago, I think this was like 2013, I was just in a time of meditation and I had this thought come up in my mind, which is to live for the audience of one. And like, it's always been in my mind since then, right? Like, and the idea was like, imagine if all your life you're just living only for like the one, which is our Father, right? So it's like, imagine if everything you did was just to live in a way that is pleasing to our Father. And since then, it's been on my mind in a time where everyone is trying to, not everyone, but lots of people on social media, we try to present ourselves in certain ways. Our world today wants us to, present ourselves one way or the other. Even religion, right? It's like you try to be a certain way. What if we forget all of that, just put all of that to the side and just say, hey, there's only one perspective, only one, person that really matters. And that's to live conscious of the presence of our Father within us. And I think that for me is just something that has been on my heart since then. And I try every day to work towards. So thank you all for sharing. It's been really, really amazing. Despite the fact that we're all in different places, we're all on the same journey, and it's really, really good to hear you all share your perspectives. And yeah, so thank you. I'm going to hand over to Sister Aprilhelen now. Thank you.
Hey, yeah, I love that concept. We had an awesome exchange around oneness. Well, Mr. Andre, you must have heard me thinking about you because I saw your name and I was going to ask if you had anything to say.
I only have to say that it's lovely to see my good friends here, whether it be you, Toni, Jeff, Ruthie, Marjorie Ray's image, Rick. It's wonderful to see you. Errol, goodness gracious. For me, again, the question was oneness in the fruits?
Correct.
So I think an understanding of our unity with others is not necessarily dependent on a feeling. And I've had this kind of a dialogue with one of our fellows recently, and it was about the what constitutes judgment, the negative aspect of this. We're not called to be of service to absolutely everyone. We're only called to be of service to whom we're capable of being service to. Even the master made determinations as to whom he could serve. And that's an important thing to realize. Is that a fruit of the Spirit? Well, perhaps discernment is in some cases, but I think we're called to be discerning. I think we're called to prioritize our time. We only have a certain amount of time to give. So that's what's on my mind and heart these days, is how do I make the wisest use of the love that God is trying to have me be the channel of? How do I best love others? And I don't always know that answer. And I know that there are times where I come across, a feeling of judgment in myself about someone or something. And I know that when that is left at the level of observation, and I know that I can pull back and have God help me to, if at the very least, not act on a negative observation, to at least pause, to exercise it is not he who captures a city, but he who can hold his own tongue. And then perhaps allow that space of time and that pausing to allow God to work in me for then the next right answer to come. I mean, a good deal is just not presuming that I know the best thing right away, and being willing to pause long enough for my thought adjuster to not get in sync with me, but for my thought adjuster to come through my being willing to get in sync with him.
Beautiful, Mr. Andre. I'm glad that even though we are here in this first youth Urantia-thon, that we get to receive the insights from some of our elder siblings.
What, are you saying I'm not young? Are you saying I'm not young? What?
Well, we're all embryos.
Is that a judgment?
On this planet. I think we're embryos even through the mansion worlds, and we don't even get to pre-K until we pass the mansion worlds. Jeez. Hey, Mr. Bruce, nice to see you. So we have about a minute until we come back from the breakout rooms for our little reflection round. So consider what you have gained through this little 15-minute conversation that you may want to share with the group. And we'll see if any of the other groups had enlightening moments that they would like to share. I certainly think discernment is an aspect that I'm very well practicing, better now in my 40s than I was in my 20s. And as you speak about that, Andre, I thought, even if it's just holding sacred space, right? You mentioned not acting. Well, that is an act, right? And just that peace that passes understanding, that I think is a loving service to the planet because of, you know, physics. The energy that you're putting out is reverberating well beyond your temporal body. So just emanating love. It doesn't have to be an action. Yeah. Well, hello all. Welcome back. Thank you, Miss Jeannie. Thanks, Juan. We had a great, that 15 minutes went by pretty quickly. Thank you to all who is contributing with your unique voice. And we'll take a few moments to reflect, share with the group of anything that was insightful for you during that time. Maybe those of you who didn't speak want to speak now. Go ahead and raise either your electronic or physical hand, and I'll look around the room. And just to be clear, you don't have to be a certain age to share your voice because we are all babies. Juan, Jeannie, any insights from your groups?
1 second. I would prefer for Adriano share his wonderful concepts that he shared with me. So I will speak in Portuguese now. Just a second, please. Adriano, você gostaria de compartilhar brevemente a nossa conversa, que foi belíssima?
Sim, pode ser. Bom, bom, esse tema ele não é assim tão simples, né, de ser falado. Mas o que a gente chega à conclusão com o estudo do livro, principalmente com o estudo dos ensinamentos do Criador do Universo, Jesus, é que só há uma forma de conseguirmos chegar a entender os frutos do Espírito, a entender a felicidade duradoura, a alegria espiritual. Só há uma forma da gente conseguir entender isso e viver isso de maneira verdadeira. É muito simples e muito complicado ao mesmo tempo. Jesus ensina que é necessário nascer de novo. O que é nascer de novo? Muitas pessoas confundem nascer de novo com o nascimento da alma. Mas isso não procede, não é a mesma coisa, não são sinônimos. A nossa alma, ela nasce naturalmente quando nós, até inconscientemente, tomamos uma decisão moral favorável à beleza, à bondade, à verdade. Ela nasce. Agora, isso não significa nascer do Espírito. Nascer do Espírito é uma decisão que provavelmente um adulto consegue tomar. E, diga-se de passagem, um adulto esclarecido pela verdade. Porque é uma decisão que coloca em xeque uma existência material, principalmente no nosso contexto, onde nós vivemos em um mundo que está de cabeça para baixo. Então, ele coloca em xeque a nossa realidade religiosa, filosófica, científica, e nos coloca adiante de dois caminhos. Um caminho onde Jesus abre uma porta chamada Porta da Misericórdia, e um caminho onde eu ainda tenho dúvida. Jesus fala, não tenha dúvida, venha como uma criança, essa é a verdadeira fé. venha como uma criança, se lance. Isso é nascer de novo. É quando você permite que aquela fé adentre a você e você se lança nas mãos de Jesus. Como uma criança significa que você está disposto a aprender tudo de novo, que você não coloca como preciosidade a sua carga de conhecimento, mas que você está disposto a segui-lo de qualquer maneira. E isso só é possível quando você está impregnado pela verdade, porque a verdade expulsa o erro. Quando a verdade entra na sua mente e você é sincero com ela, você vai estar adiante da sua decisão mais difícil do mundo, a decisão mais difícil da sua vida, que é a decisão de abrir mão da sua vida em prol de Jesus, que é abrir mão de um esquema que você estava inserido em prol de Jesus. É para isso que a gente vive. É chocante, né, às vezes, mas é isso que Jesus diz. Leiam com atenção, de maneira espiritual, que vocês vão perceber que o livro inteiro fala a respeito disso. É uma metanoia. Primeiro, o livro ele mostra quem é Deus de maneira irrefutável. E depois ele mostra quem somos nós de maneira irrefutável. E depois ele fala, está aqui o caminho da vida e está aqui o caminho que você pode escolher. É a decisão mais difícil, mas é a decisão mais certa que a gente pode tomar na nossa vida. É só para isso que a gente vive, pessoal. Para nada mais. O restante é floreio. A nossa vida aqui, ela é floreio. Ela vai passar, ela vai começar realmente depois dessa decisão. Depois dessa decisão, não existe mais morte, quando você a faz de coração. Não existe mais dúvida. E aí você começa a viver o reino do céu, porque ele é a segurança. A segurança de que você é um cidadão cósmico. E nada, nem ninguém pode te tirar essa certeza. Por ela você morre crucificado de cabeça para baixo. E é só essa verdade que muda o mundo. Nenhuma outra verdade muda.
Obrigada, Adriana. Maravilhoso.
Thank you. Marvelous. All right. Well, there's our first round of conversations. Thank you for sharing. And now Mr. Juan will prompt us for our next one.
Perfecto. Muchísimas gracias. Vamos a entonces hablar un poco de una expresión que muchos han compartido a lo largo de sus presentaciones. Estamos hablando acerca de los frutos del Espíritu. Me gustaría releer un fragmento que Jenica nos compartió en su presentación al principio, que tiene que ver con esto. Dice así: aquellos que han recibido y reconocido la presencia de Dios han nacido del Espíritu. Sois el templo de Dios y el Espíritu de Dios mora en vosotros. No es suficiente que se haya derramado este Espíritu sobre vosotros. El Espíritu Divino debe dominar y controlar cada fase de la experiencia humana. Es la presencia del Espíritu Divino, el agua de la vida, la que previene la sed devoradora del descontento mortal y el hambre indescriptible de la mente humana no espiritualizada. Los seres motivados por el Espíritu nunca están sedientos, pues el agua espiritual será en ellos un manantial de satisfacción que fluye eternamente hacia la vida. Estas almas divinamente regadas son prácticamente independientes del medio ambiente material en cuanto a los regocijos de vivir y las satisfacciones de la existencia terrenal. Están iluminadas y refrescadas espiritualmente y moralmente fortalecidas y dotadas. Ahora, me gustaría proponer esta pregunta. ¿Cómo regamos nuestras almas con las aguas del Espíritu? Esa es la pregunta para este round, para esta ronda.
Awesome question. Waters of life. How about you drop that question in the chat, Mr. Juan? Awesome. Oh, and he even did it in several languages. Very good. Very efficient. How do we irrigate our souls? Yes, Miss Jeannie, what do you got?
¿Puedo responder?
Por supuesto, claro que sí. Una pregunta, ¿vamos a hacer
Well-
breakout rooms o vamos a estar en la sala general?
Yes, we're breaking out again.
We're breaking out again? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you don't mind setting those rooms up again, hopefully it'll be easier this time.
Muchísimas gracias, Jenny, por tu ayuda.
Yes.
Nos regalan un minuto, por favor, todos, mientras que ingresamos nuevamente a nuestras salas de reunión.
And contemplate the question. How do you water your soul with the living waters of the Spirit? How do you irrigate your souls? And we'll see you back here in 15 minutes, Miss Jeannie. All right, so Toni and I can be the facilitator. Nichita, since you spoke last time, I'm just gonna open the floor real quick to see if anyone else wants to speak first. It doesn't seem so. So Nichita, you wanna come off mute? And how do you irrigate your soul?
That's a great question. I think we all have a unique answer to that question. But I think mine is unbroken communion with our adjuster. I see that as the way we irrigate our souls, by always having him in our back of our heads in every single action, and putting meaning in every action, not doing things automatically, but actually critical thinking about every decision we make, and having communion with the adjuster. That's the way I irrigate my spirit. I see it that way, at least. And doing so, I think it really speaks a lot to others too, because then they see how you do it, and then you follow example. You don't have to say it. You see it in the way you behave, the way you act, the way you treat others, and then they irrigate your spirit then by listening to your adjuster. So I see it as, I guess that's the core value I see it as, and being critical about everything, because you're in communion with the adjuster, makes you close to God and relearning everything, just like what the individual said, just forgetting about everything you were taught your whole life, your previous knowledge and experience, and having a undevoted attention towards the adjuster, and just constantly being aware of it, no matter what. When you wake up in the morning, when you go to bed, when you dream, when you awake, when you meditate, when you eat, when you sing, just being aware of it and doing it for God's pleasure in a way. I decide to do it for God's pleasure. So he sees it and I do it in a way to please him. And the Urantia book says that God is pleased by art, humans and other creatures experiencing art and expressing themselves to others. And I think that's one way I try to kind of water my soul with the spirit, is just through experiencing things that the Urantia book reflects as being important for our soul and our soul growth. So I don't want to take it too long, but that's my general view on it, and I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Hello.
I heard art in there, and I am definitely a fan of creating art in so many different mediums. Mr. Juan, you want to come off mute and tell us how you irrigate your soul?
Claro que sí, claro que sí. Saludos. Primero, muchas gracias por la invitación de poder estar con ustedes y compartir un poquito, ya que no me había dado cuenta debido a que estaba con mucho ajetreo acá en casa. Pero bien, en mi experiencia personal, ya suponemos que tenemos los frutos del Espíritu, ¿cierto? Pero lo que a mí me ha funcionado para regar el alma con el agua del Espíritu es manifestar el amor del Padre. Manifestar el amor del Padre de toda la forma posible que yo pueda hacerlo. O sea, en mi opinión personal, ya que yo vengo mis padres son pastores evangélicos, y en mi experiencia personal, antes de yo conocer la quinta revelación, yo me jactaba y decía que tenía los frutos del Espíritu. Sin embargo, había un vacío en mí. Cuando yo llegué a la quinta revelación, que comencé a profundizar y el Padre fue tratando conmigo, me di cuenta que no basta con simplemente decir, tengo los frutos del Espíritu, sino manifestar ese amor, esa bondad que hay en nosotros, porque el Padre no nos ha dado esa facultad de hacerlo. Muchas gracias.
Yeah, awesome. It sounds like the gift of the Urantia Book has watered your soul. Miss Ruthie, my sister.
Hello. Glad I can be here. This is lovely. This is my first event, attending an event such as this, and I'm grateful to see a lot of people, some people who I know and a lot of people who I have not had the privilege. This is lovely. I was thinking of the passage that our other Juan read before we went in the breakout rooms, and I was just being reminded of a paragraph, I don't know, 4 paragraphs later in that same section, paper 34, section 6. And it's that the Spirit never drives, only leads. And to me, when I think of, what does it mean to irrigate the waters of the Spirit? I hope I'm not messing up the question, but what speaks to me is more than a particular activity or thought, but also just having a posture in life of some gentleness and softness, meaning that we're not too concerned with asserting our own thoughts and ideas as we go about life, but that we're holding space for being receptive to these leadings, and maybe being a little slower to assert that in words that I know what the thing to do here is, maybe. But I think of that. What am I being led to do? Not what am I feeling forced or driven to do? I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, great. I loved that you used the word posture, a balanced poise. And I think of the paper, I think it's in 100, The Acme of Religious Living, and it describes the well-balanced poise of Jesus's personality. He was this, but never this, right? And there's this Goldilocks zone, the middle ground of this, what you just said, Miss Ruthie, the posture of gentleness and receptive to leadings. That's really beautiful. Do I see Brother Bruce wanting to chime in here? How do you irrigate your soul?
Well, it's like water. You drink it in, it fills you up, and then you take, what we've learned and the truth, beauty, and goodness, and it just fills you, and that's what to me drives, your move to, your soul and your whole. But it's like a whole body thing almost, and it's the metaphor is good because that's what you do is you drink it in from the Urantia Book, from whatever, and then you push it out to the world or your neighbors, your friends, just being a good person, on this planet, and that's going to serve you well later, more or less. So anyway, I think it's like you drink it in and then you give it out, it's a circular thing.
Yeah, I love that. Drink
it's a
it
beautiful,
in, pour it out. Yeah, awesome.
That's all I got.
Well, before Mr. Toni has his hand raised, I do see Mr. Errol. Nice to see you doing all of your caricatures. You want to chime in here?
Yes, chime. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Huh? Yes, you can hear me?
We hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh, you guys sound just so fabulously focused and enlightened. I myself struggle with fear, doubt, and disbelief. So you could argue that that's just a garden potential rich for spiritual ministry. But what I find is that laughing at myself is a fabulous way to till the soil for spiritual input. And since I have so many aspects of myself that are clearly laughable, if not actually disturbed, I think of myself more and more lately as basically disturbed. So I have a lot to laugh at. And I have a motto that says, when you can laugh at yourself, your ego is too slippery to get a hold of. And what I find is while I cultivate all these positive meditation, I meditate every day, blah, 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 I do this and that and the other. Unless I recognize the dark side, the shadow side of my personality and deal with that, it's only kind of half done. And I posted in the chat, there is a thing in the Urantia book that says, everyone basically has a pet evil. You heard me, pet evil. I don't know how that translates into Spanish, Portuguese, or whatever your language is, but if you can translate it, it's an important concept because it says almost everyone has this pet evil. Come here. I almost see like a little dog that's always attached to me, nipping at my thighs. So the pet evil is important to recognize, the shadow side, the place where I still operate from disturbed beliefs. And one of the things that I have learned over the years is that even though the Urantia book provides a fabulous guide for life, at the very least. It doesn't really deal all that much with the ego side of life. And having worked with things like A Course in Miracles and other tools, I think unless we address the dark side of life, no matter what positive meditative mind things we cultivate, they're going to be limited in their ability to really saturate through to our basic soul nature. So my perspective on this whole thing is while we cultivate all the positive, prayerful, meditative ways of dealing with life, the other side, the flip side, and remember, the Urantia Book says the greatest affliction is never to have been afflicted. So when we share and acknowledge our own struggle, our own ways we or our culture are afflicted, and we bring that to the table of prayer and communion, it's necessary, it's healing, and it does not just healing for me individually, but it's healing for the collective that I have the opportunity to influence. And the way I'll just end it with one of my sayings: if all else fails, take it personally. Now, that's a joke. I don't know how well that translates into other languages. I can do it in mime, but I don't know if that translates either. Anyway, I would love to be more in contact with all of you, and I wish you'd look at my chats because I posted some questions, requests, and opportunities. Not to mention the last 25 chapters of the Urantia Book, but you'll see.
You're funny. I like laughing at you, Brother Errol. I'm in your tribe. All right, we have 3 minutes before we return to the whole group for reflections. So, Mr. Toni, what is your irrigation process for your soul?
Yeah, seeing that I love gardening, I'm a gardener. I would like to use some real life stories about irrigation and then draw on those to explain where I'm going to. So a couple years ago, I used to grow watermelons, and I would plant these amazing watermelons, and just a couple weeks before it was time to harvest, we'll get a lot of rain. And I used to think watermelons should love water, but no, you get so much rain that I had exploding watermelons, right? Like they would just be exploding on the fields from too much water all at once. Then on the other side, you've got the plants that I always forget to water until they're dead. And I'm like, I should have watered this. So you've got two things. They're the ones that get so much water in one short period of time, and then they explode. And then the ones that I always forget to water. But on the other side, I've got like my tomatoes that have drip irrigation, right? That is under the fabric, and it's just dripping drop at a time every minute, just like that. And those tomatoes turn out very beautiful, very amazing, right? And that's sort of how I see it when it comes to irrigating ourselves. Not so much the practices, but the regularity of those practices. You know, how we can make it a daily habit to constantly make sure that we are getting ourselves fed, ourselves watered, you know, not the big jumps. You know, we're not conference vampires, right? Like the people, they go for spiritual conferences and woo, and then nothing after that, then the next conference. No, are we like forgetting ourselves or forgetting our spirits, you know, to nourish ourselves? But every day, as often as we can, you know, it doesn't matter how much, but we make it a habit to irrigate ourselves. And personally, I enjoy being in nature. It really helps me to stay connected. I enjoy meditating. I enjoy reading and listening to books. And I enjoy fellowship with people. I find when I spend some time with like-minded people, you come out of it really full, you know. So yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Toni. And I've been writing everyone's answers, or some of them, in the chat. So if you need more, which is interesting, I'll just follow it up here as we start to come back into the main room with our Portuguese and Spanish speakers. Welcome back. Welcome back. And for about 4 minutes or so, as I look at my timing sheet on this program, that maybe we'll just have one. So Nachita, do you want to have one reflection before we go into the next prompt of the conversation about irrigating your soul?
Yeah, when you talked about irrigation, that got me thinking a little bit, and I think everyone has something to say about that. So I want to just quickly share. I think of the spirit and how it irrigates our soul is in a way of thinking of how the soil is our personality. The spirit is the water, and the soul is the plant. Our soul is the plant, it's growing. But if the soil is too dry, the water, the spirit will just go flow right through it. It will not keep any of it. The water will just spill through the soil and it will not stain any of it. But if the soil is it's balanced, so it has the right amount of clay, the right amount of compounds that it kind of makes the soil hold the water of the spirit, it's able to grow the soul much more efficiently, and then it will eventually seep out through other plants, other souls, and in the same time to affect other plants in the garden, and the garden can become bigger as more of the spirit spills on that soul, and then eventually spills on all the souls around it. So I just want to share that quick thought.
I love that. Yes. And if I remember this correctly, the personality as the soil, maybe the seed in the soil, the spirit as the water, and the soul, the evolving blend of the personality, the thought adjuster through our evolution, our eternal learning and experience, and how that, like what is that tree? The aspens that are, it's one organism, right? Yet they're individual trees, yet they're all connected below. Beautiful analogy. And then Miss Ruthie in the chat reminded us what Errol alluded to earlier in the English speaking room about humor should function as an automatic safety valve to prevent the building up of excessive pressures due to the monotony of sustained and serious self-contemplation in association with intense struggle for the developmental progress and noble achievement. I love that. So remember to laugh, be funny, don't take yourself so seriously. And literally, they found that smiling helps you breathe better. The muscles of the mouth literally are connected to your breathing muscles, and you can breathe more easily when you smile. So whistle while you work and smile. All right, so we're moving into our third and final round of this conversations. So my prompt is pretty easy here. As you have had this day full of inspiration, I'm going to pop this in the chat. What is or what are your next steps in your self-directed spiritual growth in order to bear more fruits of the Spirit? What are your next steps in your self-directed spiritual growth, because it's all a personal journey, as we understand religion is a personal experience. Yet we also understand from what the Urantia Book says that growth is almost wholly unconscious. So that's why we do it together. Yet, what are your personal next steps? Maybe it's being in closer association with more brothers and sisters who are like-minded. Maybe it is what Toni alluded to, going out in nature more frequently, getting off of technology, one of those pet evils, addiction to technology. So what are your next steps in your self-directed spiritual growth in order to bear more fruits of the Spirit? So Miss Jeannie, our last time of going to breakout rooms, and it's the 16 after, so we'll return here at the 30 after. Or 35, let's do the 35. All right, so take a moment and ponder that question. Have this sacred pause to allow any insights to come up for you. What have you not been doing in your life that you could be doing? What are you doing that needs to be purged so that there's more space to be doing whatever it is that you could be doing that you may commit to today? I'm assuming Toni and Nachita have their hands raised from the last time. Yeah. Who wants to share? Clint? Awesome.
Yeah, I haven't shared much. I've been kind of working on my Christmas cards here today and running in and out.
Multitasking. Fabulous.
That's trying to, what I probably walk away with that may be helpful is the notion of just be a little more like Jesus. And he had some personal characteristics. I don't mean like feeding the multitude or healing the sick, the big stuff, but the little stuff. Like, for example, he, with rare exceptions, he didn't give advice unless somebody asked him for it. I am full of advice. A lot of it turns out to be unwanted. Some of it turns out to be bad advice. I give it whether people ask for it or not. It's not working for me. Why don't I just be a little more like Jesus and wait for people to ask if they want advice? And so that's one. And another is similar. Someone read a quote to this effect, mastering the tongue. Well, it's related. It's all related to the tongue. There are times, again, when I offering my opinion that I should just bite my tongue. I think I'm doing better at that as I get older, but it's so tough. You know, I have such wonderful observations to share. I think, I like to think. So those little personal characteristics of Jesus, I would benefit from adopting more of those.
Thank you, Brother Clint, for sharing that. So right when you said no advice giving, yeah, that definitely, I see that across the board with humans as a growth point. And what I think about the way Jesus did it, he would ask questions more than give advice and draw out what those people already knew that maybe they didn't know they knew. And then what was it, especially when dealing with children, not telling them not to do something, yet giving them an alternative to do, not necessarily giving advice, yet steering and guiding in a new direction. Yeah. And of course, humor. Always circling back to humor. Anyone else in your commitment to doing something new or different, or re-engaging in an activity that may have been erased from your schedule?
I saw Jeff's hand.
All right, Mr. Jeff.
I've been on a long search to learn to love at a much higher level. And on a micro level, I have a practice of every day trying to discern what my particular angle and goal is for the day. It's not rigidly subordinated to the love quest, but every day there's something new.
April-Helen, you're muted.
You're muted.
As I'm saying such awesome things. I love that. Adopting newness in your love quest. That's what I got out of that. And the other thing that came to mind as you were speaking, Mr. Jeff, in the caveman story, I think that's also in paper 100, one of my favorite papers, that if we can learn to love one more human, and if each day or each week, and if that is the limit to our ability, then we are certainly socializing and truly spiritualizing our personalities. That's a little paraphrase for you. Woo woo. Errol?
I'm going to jump in just because there's silence and nature, at least my nature abhors the silence. Anyway, that was kind of a joke, but I don't know. If you don't speak my form of joke, you won't get the joke, but that's okay. When you talked about freshness, Jeff, thank you for pointing that out, because it immediately brought me back to one of the most fundamental truths in the Urantia book. Boy, that's saying a lot, isn't it? The keys to the kingdom of heaven are sincerity. Anyway, the one I went, oh, this is the one, a mistake. Religious living is devoted living, and devoted living is creative living, original and spontaneous. So when you talk about fresh, and it's like, so if what I need to do is release my old habits of doubting that, thinking that I have to jump in and take control, thinking that I actually understand what's going on, thinking that my perceptions of reality are really true or not, and really suspend as much as I can, which to me is what forgiveness is. Oh, and just, cast myself off into the unknowing, where I trust the original and spontaneous is to be found. And be willing, so to be willing not to know is one thing I need to let go of. To the willing not to be in control, that's a huge one. And certainly a willing not to judge anyone or anything, because I don't know. And that reminds me of the line from the Urantia book, which is a showstopper, which says we all have to have universe frames, in order to function in the universe, but to one degree or another, they're all fallacious. Talk about humbling. In other words, everything I think about in the frames and the context and the understandings in which it all filters through are mostly false. So where does that leave you? It's funny. So it only leaves you back into the now, which is the complete mystery, which is God miraculously unfolding the miraculous thing that is the existence. in new and fantastic ways. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Hallelujah.
It's funny.
Yes.
It's all really fun.
Well, and I just love that you remind us of humor, and it sparks the thought that we'll all know when we die, and how dare we hold so tightly to something here on an experimental world, right? That gives an entire different level of agondanteristic need for faith, and how awesome it's going to be when we're in the resurrection halls. And not that it's going to be a boastful thing, but there is going to be like a sense of relief, I think, that not even just relief, yet a sense of the ability to be a little bit more of service, because we have the revelation and just a tad bit more truth than some others may have.
I just want to.
Who knows? I don't want to hypothesize there.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
When you said when we wake up and then we'll know, and I wanted to jump in and say, or not. You see,
or not.
I have 50 years with this, I believe and I hope in the whole post-life system that the Urantia book describes. But the reality is, I don't know. I take it on faith. I act as if it's true, which is faith, a belief. But I don't have the same level of like, yeah, it's absolutely true that maybe I had when I first found the Urantia book. I questioned it as much as be inspired by it. It's like I want to say when they say things like spornagia, I want to go,
yeah,
come on, you made that up, spornagia. Nothing's called spornagia, and yet maybe there are spornagia. Look it up.
Well, maybe I'll re-articulate saying, in my eyes, opinion, intuition, we'll know a little bit more.
I hope you're right.
We may not know it all. I don't think we'll ever know it all. Even those who know way more say they don't even know it all.
Well, just to cover my base, I have made reservations for dinner on Mansonia number 4. And
oh, yeah?
yeah. So, I didn't want to show up and like not have reservations.
You're hilarious.
And they'd say, do you have reservations? And I'd go, oh, I didn't know I needed them. Anyway.
All right. I'm going to assume mine are already set. There's my faith. So here in a moment, we'll be welcoming in the other Portuguese and Spanish speakers. Any final thoughts or a sacred pause? I am very comfortable with silence. Yeah, Ms. Ruthie, the concept of time, I have been diving into over the last few weeks, time, the import of time, and it's just so fascinating. And definitely when you say maturity in there, it experience, how much can we gain to continue to seek what Mr. Jeffrey was talking about, these new, keep bringing newness into the creative fold and the expression. Yeah, it's wonderful. Oh, well, maybe I said 35. I think I did. You want to say more about that, Miss Ruthie?
I could. I'm not sure that I have anything to say. I just, when people make comments that remind me exactly of like, oh, that's that one thing I just reread, or I don't know, I just like pointing that out in case, just kind of as a reference. But yeah, no, I mean, I could talk, but I don't really think I have anything profound to contribute. Thanks, though.
Well, so how about if there's any next steps in your self-directed spiritual growth in order to bear more fruits of the Spirit in your life? You have any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure how to answer that, honestly. I mean, using the word steps makes me think of more concrete, tangible things, which may or may not be the intent behind the question. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure I can point to a particular thing. I mean, I can say, sure, I should be more like Jesus too. That's a next step. I'm not sure that's a step that will be completed anytime soon. Or, well, anyway, be more like, yeah, I don't know. I think, I mean, in terms of any tangible things, I suppose I'm seeking maybe a more regimented or disciplined, you know, smaller community of members, or, you know, I don't belong to a study group, and that may not necessarily be exactly the function I'm speaking to anyway, but I guess that might be the thing for me, that, you know, as lovely as I enjoy, you know, gatherings such as this, I also, there's another potential that's available when we have, you know, smaller groups of committed people who are really committed to each other and building relationships more deeply over time. And I'm not sure how to solve that, because I want to do that in person, but finding readers and like-minded people in person is sometimes tricky. So I don't know if that answers the spirit of your question or not, but
yeah, it did for me. Of course, I know a little bit more about what your sentiments allude to, so thank you for sharing your insides out. Mr. Toni?
Hi, Ruthie. Is there any chance you're based in Germany or Switzerland? You're muted.
I do not currently live there. I born and raised in the States, but yeah, I know you noticed my last name. There's a town in Switzerland named after.
Yeah, I know quite a lot of Rangers, so I was kind of
that's cool.
hoping that you'll be based here, because I know quite a few people. So if we even, you may know them, but I don't think so. I think something I'd like to share about the idea of next steps is just like a personal thing I've been doing, which may or may not be of benefits to somebody listening. And it's sort of like to, first step is to create a sort of like philosophy for living. So it's like, what is life to me? What is my purpose? What am I, you know, how do I want to live? And then the next step is to sort of do an assessment of the different aspects of my life. So the first would be the kind of relationships I'm in. So for me, that would be I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son, and I'm a brother. So those four things. And then I try to say, okay, how can I, so regularly I check this to say, how can I be better at those things? So my relationships pretty much. So how can I be a better brother, a better husband, a better son, a better father? And that all ties into like being like my father, right? Because it's like, I'm trying to, you know, be more like the, you know, how I'm supposed to be, you know, with the leading of the thought adjuster. And then the last one would be, I created a list of the different aspects of what it means to be human. So sort of like the intellectual, the physical, different things. You know, it could also mean like things like finance, you know, social responsibility, cosmic citizenship, different. I made a list of that. And basically I try to maximize each of the aspects of that list. because the complete list is just means you have a robust personnel, like you have a well versatile personality, you know. So it goes into how are you as a person, how do you interact with people, what are your tendencies, are you prone to anger, are you prone to, you know, different things. So it's very, very personalized for me, right? And I try to maximize it. So intellectually, am I doing the best I can as an for my intellect? Am I developing my mind to make sure that I can function as best as I can, you know, spiritually, physically? So I pay quite a lot of attention to my body. How am I eating? Am I working out? Am I fit? You know, to make sure that I can live as long as possible. I can really take care of myself. So yes, I created those three things. The first one, my relationships, right? So who am I and all of that. The second one would be the complete personal, and the last one would be my philosophy for living. So putting it broadly, the philosophy for living is like the big, like encompassing thing, right? That I'm ideal or I ideal, and then the relationships is the next step, right? So the relationships are my interactions. So every day, these are the people I'm interacting with. So like Andrea was talking about priorities. These are my priorities, right? Like I need to make sure, like in my interaction with people, I am hitting all this, making sure that these groups of people are getting the best from me. And then lastly is then the more specific things like intellect, you know, physical, mental, you know, up down like that, you know. So if somebody wants this, I can send it sometime so that you can have a look at it if you want to and use it. And it has a guide attached to it. It's just something I use personally, but yeah, I think we've gotten back to the group, bigger group now. So just, you know, send me a message if you want to have this and I will send it to you. So thank you.
I love that. All of what I heard was triads of nutrition is what I like to call, whether it's a food nutrition. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Sweet. So we have about 10 more minutes in this little section. And then we're going to have from the host some comments and maybe close with a communion moment together. So let's see. Nachita, do you have reflections from that round?
Yes, I do. I have few reflection. Main key is I want to emphasize Tony's philosophy. I guess I think it's important that we have we have values and principles that we begin our journey from before we can improve others or help others. And I want to add kind of to Ruthie's kind of answer that to be more on open-ended question, to be more approachable, I think is to look how Jesus lived his life in balance. So he lived his life in a very balanced manner. He was not too gluttonous nor too giving. He helped those in need. He was kind. He was kind, but he was also stern. All the values that he expressed and all the balancing act he was playing, I think that's a starting point for everyone to start. I'm definitely taking those seriously. So having a more approachable view on how to grow the fruit of the spirit is to balance yourself. At least that's how I do myself. Balance myself to a point where Jesus was, even though I'm probably not gonna become like Jesus and his manner and his perfection as a human. We can get really close to his attainment. And because it's an open-ended question, when we die, we can just keep going with that thought. We don't have to end it when we die. So we can get more perfect balances throughout eternity afterwards. So it's an easy way to start and it's an easy way to continue. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you. I hear the repetition throughout these conversations of balancing, releasing from the extremes of the pet evils as we find the middle ground and the well-balanced poise. Thank you so much for enjoying those. Well, whether you enjoyed them or not, for engaging in the conversations. And all day, what a delight to spend a Saturday, which I usually take off technology on Saturdays, so it's been a delight. From the norm. So with those last few moments, I would like to put forth an invitation of continuing conversations. And I've been asked to, I'm gonna just go ahead and put it here in the chat, that we have a conversation circle forming, and next Saturday around mid-afternoon in the US. And these will be our conversations on culture. And this is an outgrowth of some Urantia Book students that we recognize this important path to improving the Urantia Book community. And the focus, this discussion next Saturday, is going to be primarily about the younger generations of the Urantia Book community. So we're going to ask questions in this first conversation, this series of conversation, the first one being, what do you feel like you need that you're not getting from our current Urantia Book culture? What is Urantia Book culture? We want to talk about it. So we have a Zoom link here. I'll post it. However, if you would like to have this sent to you, I'm posting a Gmail account that you can post all of your inquiries. And if you want that Zoom link sent directly to you. Again, what do you feel like you as a younger generation person, however old you are, that you're not getting from our current Urantia Book culture? And what is the culture? And where is this going towards the era of light and life? How can we be stewards of this on our sweet little planet here that we all love? Well, I won't speak for you. I love. So, Ruthie, what is culture? Can you share with us, by coming off of mute, what do you think I mean by Urantia Book culture?
Well, I think of culture as sort of the environment through which we exist. I apologize, I wasn't prepared to elaborate much, but just kind of the waters that we swim in, just as fish that are swimming in water don't necessarily always realize they're swimming in water, but there is water. And it's just nice to talk about. And I would add, part of the conversation is also what's going well. I think there's also a lot of beautiful things and helpful things and serviceable things in the culture. So.
Mr. Andre, what is Urantia Book culture?
I love that you asked me that question, because there's nothing like getting a random softball, as Ruthie just very genially pointed out. There's nothing quite like having to field that kind of a question. But it's a lovely question. What I have always understood our culture to be, and let's be clear, when we're talking to each other here in this context of loving fellowship, this is our culture. And what strikes me about it is that when we choose to internalize the teachings of the Urantia Book, what it allows us to do is to start every relationship on a higher foundation. We get to start with a leg up. Now, if we know that the other also is starting on that higher foundation, we make assumptions about where we can begin. And there's something, it's quite unconscious. It's not a matter that we're saying, okay, here's Bruce, I know I can start here with him. Unbeknownst to many of you, Bruce and I shared a beer back in March when he was in town. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful. We got together, we had a beer and a meal, and we just were able to talk about anything. It could have been just any two people. But we each know that the other has this other thing that we're aware of in their background. And now that allows us to start from there. Now, what is the next level of that? The next level of that is when we begin to understand through our own spiritual development that, and we understand that our culture of fellowship is growing even more intimately, that we can really, and I don't even know what this looks like, and I don't even know how to articulate it, but it would be that next level of we understand how much more we can serve each other. We understand how much more we can do together and produce together and create together and love together. And I wouldn't pretend to know exactly what that looks like, but can you imagine that at each step, at each Mansonia, it gets a little bit better in that same kind of a way? I think that's what we have here. We have the beginnings. They say art is mortal Urantia. The Urantia Book is a kind of art that allows us to synthesize Urantia, the Urantia that maybe hasn't yet developed, but is in development. It's like a scaffolding. It's Urantia scaffolding for us. That's what revelation is when it's true, the way this epical revelation is.
Thank you for picking up that curveball and running with it, both of you. Brilliant.
Yeah, that's very articulate to do that. And really what it does too, to just tag on to his what Andre's saying, because he's so astute, is that you're getting closer to Moda, you know, and that's what these things do. That's what art does. You know, we get closer and closer to Moda. We're not there, but you know, we're gonna, you know, that's one of the big things. You know, when you get to Mansion World, even #1, I mean, you got to learn about Moda and all that. But the closest we can get to it is these conversations. And that's a beautiful thing. And art. You know, you got to embrace art, because art is really the closest thing to Moda. So it's, anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you, Andre. We did have we had a beer. Yeah. It was great fun. He's a great guy, man. I don't
It
know.
was as close to Morantia Suds as one can get.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If
Thank
I could
you.
just interject, I was in London recently, and I went to
Make it quick, honey.
Morantia Pub in London. I was just there. It's fabulous. I recommend the Morantia Pub in London. That's all.
You were just there at the Morantia Pub?
I mean,
I was in London.
Who
They have
loves the Morantia Pub in London?
Yeah, in the East
Nice.
End. You'd be amazed. It's just very funny hearing the Urantia book discussed in a pub. Jolly good.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
That is very cool. All
It would be
right,
cool. Okay.
y'all. Well, this is, yes. So that was fabulous. That was a long day full of intellect and inspiration. Miss Jeannie, we have about 8 more minutes. Do you have any announcements before we close?
Please go ahead with the final prayer. No announcement for now. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, we hope that you join us next Saturday, if your spirit calls, to further these conversations. And as we hold space for all of those that will come in our path, all those who couldn't join us today, all those who don't have anyone to pray for them, maybe take a moment and picture some people, faceless or brilliantly smiling faces, that you know that you'd like to send some loving light to with this moment of silence. Not only picturing their faces, yet your relationship and how you feel in their presence, and feel that presence as you consider them for a few moments. And now you turn your mind's eye to someone that is challenging for your personality, someone that ruffles your feathers, someone that triggers you in a un-Jesus-like manner. And that same love that you just felt for that person that you care so much about, attempt to your best ability to surround this person that is challenging with that same love, or as close to it as you can get. And what does that look like? Full of forgiveness, respect, loving service, sincere fairness, enlightened honesty, undying hope, unfailing goodness, merciful ministry, courageous loyalty, enduring peace. Picture as if you both were 5 years old, pre-thought adjuster, sitting on a log by a river or somewhere special to you. Before all of the challenges, before you grew up and carried all the baggage, knowing that they and you are true siblings. And finally, turn your mind's eye, your heart mind to God. The one and only, the first source and center, God, our creator, our creative parent, with all of God's adorable attributes like omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience, limitlessness, sovereign royalty, and be in awe. Sit and wonder for God's generosity and the gifts that God gives each of us uniquely as personality, the thought adjuster, and free will. Sit in this abundance of childlike awe. Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. Yellow, red, and black and white, they are precious to his sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. Yay, God!
Thank you, everyone. Muchas gracias a todos
Thank you for
nuestros
joining.
amigos de Latinoamérica y también muito obrigado,
Muito obrigado.
brasileiros.
Gracias. Gracias.
Portugueses.
Thank you, everyone.
Obrigada.
Okay, see you soon.
Thank you, Aprilhelen. Thank you, Juan.
Hasta pronto.
Everyone. God bless you all. Love you.
Thank you, everybody.
Love you.
Muchas gracias. Muito obrigado.
Thank you.